Welcome to The Last Call. It's a conversation with two boozy hacks. My name is John Sweeney and I'm in London. And in New York is Michael Weiss. Mike, what are you drinking?
Same as always, John. Roku Japanese gin for relaxing time, make it Suntory time.
And I am drinking Primo Italian.
Same as last time then.
Same as last time, but I've also been drinking a bottle of Portuguese red. And I'm joined by two special guests, both one of whom is a Trump supporter. This is Mary Lou from Arkansas.
Well, nice to meet y'all.
And this is
she's
Samantha.
really from Brighton, isn't she? This is all for
and this is Samantha from Brexit land.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, Samantha from Brexit land.
And so,
although now apparently the Brexit Party has rebranded itself the anti-lockdown party.
Yes, Samantha, is that right? You've now joined.
Is that your new?
Are you in favour of the lockdown or against it?
I think it's destroying the economy.
Okay.
It's destroying the economy. And have you had a crush on Nigel Farage for long?
Since day one.
Seriously?
Yeah, absolutely. It's gorgeous.
So, Mary Lou.
I can see the optimism quotient of this episode declining precipitously, second by second.
Mary Lou, who are you voting for?
Well, there is no question on that. It's obviously going to be Trump. My day one.
Nice accent, Mary Lou. You're already struck this counterintuitive impression. You've got the nose ring, and you're from Arkansas, but you're ladling it on pretty thick. Like Bill Clinton in his boyhood, as opposed to Bill Clinton as governor and then president. Are you sure these aren't like actors, John? Like they're not like this is like some political pantomime you brought in to spice up the show at the last minute?
To spice up the show. How rude can you be, Michael Weiss? I mean, this Mary Lou has come all the way from Arkansas, and Samantha's come all the way from Cheltenham. They are, I mean, the riddle, I think, I was just wondering, we're only doing it for half an hour because...
it's a short one today.
A short one, but I think it's very important. What I want to understand, it's the reason why I've invited Mary Lou and Samantha from Chichester. Did I get that wrong? What I wanted to do was to try and understand why 4 out of 10 Americans will be voting for Donald Trump tomorrow, and why there are many, many people who support Nigel Farage. Fucking weirdos, though both of those two people are.
Just been Zoom bombed by my daughter.
Hi, hello, hey. Hi.
Julia from Queens. She does not find Nigel Farage in the least bit attractive, and she won't be voting at all tomorrow.
But she's that's appropriate because you're not yet of voting age.
Yeah. But we've confused our identity politics as well, because neither Amy nor myself is Jewish. I'm sorry, I take that back. I'm half Jewish. But I was going to say neither Amy nor myself is Catholic, but we've sent her to Catholic school because, and here's where I'll concede the anti-COVID measure argument a little bit. The New York City public school system is just atrocious at the moment. It's all remote learning, and that doesn't work.
Yes.
Nor does this, as you can see. She's not wearing any pants at the moment.
Oh, shush! You can't say that.
Yes, I can. She's not Jeffrey Toobin, for Christ's sake. She's 5, you know. She gets home from school and she just like wants to take off all her clothes, right?
Daddy, come downstairs and play with me.
Oh, I will after I'm done. Okay, we're
having a quick work.
So. Go downstairs with Nancy, and I'll be there in a minute.
Where's Mommy?
She's upstairs.
I want to say hi to her.
Okay, go ahead. Thanks. She's just throwing her pants at me.
In American English, pants means long trousers. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, that's right.
Yeah. So in English pants means something different. It means underpants.
I'm well aware,
so
but she's 5, and now she's jumping on the bed in her English quote unquote pants. This is life this is what it's been for 8 months. So people wonder, how come your book isn't out yet? You haven't been writing much. You haven't been on telly much. What's going on? Fuck off. That's what's going on. This is life.
Daddy,
shit.
fuck is a new word.
That's very true.
Yeah, she's right. She's right. She's right. She's right. And here's Samantha from he's not getting on again. Okay, Mary Lou.
The scenery is collapsing all around us,
I'm
but I think
impressed
this
with the
may
New
end up being our
Yorkers,
best episode.
I think, by the way, Mary Lou would be worried about the way you're bringing up your child.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you about my childhood. It's a little bit different to how you lot in New York do it.
Uh-huh. That's like
A little bit
my sister went.
interchangeable, the little positions in the family dynamics, but we don't complain.
My oldest sister went to school in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which is Amish country, but also Pennsylvania. And her friend was, you know, kind of this hipster in the 80s, and he wore a Mao cap, and they were standing in line in McDonald's. And these three trucker guys, big brick shithouse looking guys, were just kind of clocking him. And I mean, this guy weighed probably 85 pounds, if any. And he thought it was the end of him. And then one of the truckers turns to him and goes, "Boy, I ain't never seen nothing like you before." And then just went on his merry way. And that's the Pennsylvania we're counting on tomorrow, John.
Yeah.
Hang on, I gotta lock out here. If even Michael Keaton, the original Batman, the OG Batman, is doing his TikTok videos or whatever the hell they're called, talking about Pennsylvania turning out for Biden. And did you see this weird poll? Like, I don't know. Everyone is sort of has a very heated opinion of Nate Silver. I do not, but occasionally I check in. And he had this piece today. There's still a chance Trump can win. Here's how. And then one of the graphs was, if Biden wins Pennsylvania, then I think that some of the other states that he's in contention for winning, the probability of him winning goes up to the 90 percentile. If he loses Pennsylvania, the probability goes down to the 70s and 60s and all that. So it really, Pennsylvania is the race, according to this analysis. And I don't know how true this is, how accurate it is. All I know is Nate Silver, right? So very, very strange. And it's made me confused as to how electoral math in this country works, but there you have it.
I think if you there is a problem in positing everything on Pennsylvania because that's a distorting prism, but it doesn't really matter for the purposes of my next anecdote, which is about this is the most surreal podcast.
This is my friend Teddy. He comes from Alabama. He's also a Trump supporter. He's come all the way from Julia's bedroom. Go ahead. Come on. Come on, get out of here.
Hey, Julia, you're going to be famous one day.
Go ahead. Go see mommy, okay? Go bother mommy. I did my virtue signaling, writing an essay about how working moms under COVID have so much worse than working dads. And
I saw that.
Beginning to think my thesis is going a bit wobbly.
Yeah, no, I think so. I can imagine. So the Deer Hunter. The Deer Hunter is set, or set in Vietnam. It's also set in Pennsylvania. Yeah. And I feel desperately sad because almost all of the people, all of the grunts, all the people who fought in Vietnam in that movie, so many of them are going to be voting for Trump, aren't they? And
imagine they would be. I mean, he does have a lot of military support, perhaps not as much as he did when he was first elected, but still a sizable amount. I remember in March, when we first started this, remember the car crash that my whole family got in, that was in Western Pennsylvania. We were driving back from Michigan. And it was, I mean, really kind of eye-opening for us. As I said, I think Tom Nichols we had on the show, and he said it was like Bedford Falls. The entire town came out to support these carpetbagging lunatics who were all jam-packed into a Ford SUV in the midst of a snow squall in, I think maybe it was April. Anyway, so it was just a wonderful American story, but everywhere we drove in the aftermath of that car crash, you could see the Trump Pence signs up in the yards and all of that. So yeah, I think Pennsylvania is definitely a bellwether, if not the bellwether. But then again, look, Joe Biden is from Scranton. He's got a lot of roots in that state. And, he kind of embodies, at least to a certain optical degree, the working class, Irish Catholic, salt of the earth ethos. Now, obviously, he hasn't really been part of that constituency for a very long time. But you know, he carries with him his upbringing, I think. And so, you know, I don't know. I'm beginning, last week I was more sanguine. This week I'm a little more nervous and pessimistic, just because the race does seem to be tightening in certain areas, and Florida looks like it's going to be a toss-up. And then the most crucial question of all, when will we actually know who won the damn thing? You know, Trump is going to declare victory night of, assuming he's got at least sufficient amounts of electoral college votes. But the vote counting could last days, if not weeks later. And so you're going to have this kind of fracture in the American psyche about who actually won this election.
My hope is that the polls are right, because they got it wrong last time, and therefore that they have corrected. They may well have overcorrected, and therefore Biden is doing better than we think he is. But even if the polls are as wrong as they were last time, on all the projections I've been reading, Biden still wins. That's what Nate Silver's saying. Even if the polls are as wrong as they were last time, Biden still wins. And I think Biden, I'm also looking at the range of states which are in play, and they are traditionally Republican states. And, you know, but the idea that he's got a chance in places like Georgia and North Carolina, Virginia is clearly in his column. That's great. But fundamentally, he's got old people who don't like the way that Trump played the virus, and he's got the Rust Belt states back. So Wisconsin, where's the Green Bay meat fudge Packers? Did I get that wrong? Mary Lou, did I get that wrong? They're not called the Green Bay meat.
They're not called the Green Bay meat fudge Packers.
I'm going to get into trouble, but then
you're going to have like black-clad assassins raid your home with cheese hats on, either this evening or next week after the election and after the American psychosis dies down. I think Wisconsin is what you're going for there.
Yeah. So Wisconsin was the latest. There's been a poll which says 17 plus 17 points.
You know, I think Biden's got Wisconsin. That's a lock. Ohio, probably. But the problem is he's ahead by like 5 points in most of the battleground states, and that's within sort of the margin of error, or it puts him maybe a percentage.
No, it's not quite. The margin of error is.
No, I know that, but it just means that if you take into account the margin of error, he really has an advantage of only about a point or two. So it's much closer than it seems. He doesn't have 10-point leads in Ohio, Michigan.
Yeah.
Certainly not Florida. Pennsylvania, I don't think he does either. So, you know, look, it's funny. And I now, because you have these two guests, I want to put it to them. A friend of mine called me this afternoon, and because last we spoke was about 6 months ago. And I was actually quite skeptical that whoever won the Democratic nomination was going to defeat Trump. You know, history tends to, at least in the last 25, 30 years, favor an incumbent. And I just thought, you know, Trump, you know, in his bag of tricks, he does have an ample supply of resources, or at least he used to. And he's now capitalizing on, you know, the lockout of the New York Post Hunter Biden story, which is only kind of bombarding in the conservative or right-wing press, and you know, liberal media, the way they've reported on it is to say we cannot substantiate these allegations. We haven't seen these laptops. We don't know if this is disinformation, or some of it's true, some of it's not true, et cetera. So he's spun the culture war. For him, we're the only reason we have so many cases is we're better at testing. Other countries probably have even more cases than we do. We're just better at testing, and so the data is more comprehensive. So, you know, he's ticking certain boxes that I think some of his constituents will find appealing. But here's the problem for me. I usually don't cross the street in terms of my news consumption. I am your almost stereotypical Northeast, in my case, self-loathing liberal, but whatever. Still, I read the New York Times, the Washington Post, kind of the standard fare for people such as ourselves. I don't read the other side as often as I probably should. And I feel like even though the quote unquote Main Street press is meant to give us a lay of the land, to explain to us how all of America is and how people that are not from our communities or not from our demographics think. I don't feel like I have a fair picture of what's going on. And I wonder, you know, who Trump continues to appeal to and who he might have even persuaded, simply because they do believe at some degree that, okay, well, Joe Biden might be Sleepy Joe, the establishment man, but in train with him is this kind of ultra progressive woke vanguard that's going to turn the United States into not a socialist state, but do things that just ruffle too many comfortable bourgeois feathers, whether it's cancel the police or defund the police rather, or, you know, kind of institute a critical theory sort of philosophical underbed for all news reporting and all kind of intellectual exercises. So I put it to your guests, like, what do you read? What do you think? What are you hearing? And what's your view of the state of the country and the world if Joe Biden wins the election?
Mary Lou, can you read?
Can I read? I'm gonna just say bad, just bad. I don't want to be on it no more, sir.
That's what you call a shy Trump voter, isn't it?
So
She's like,
so,
don't put the camera on me. I don't want to answer any of your questions. But
it was,
I'll tell you, when the counter revolution comes, your kind is first up against the wall.
She was getting peer pressure from her wicked sister. The thing that upsets me is there are good people who believe in Trump, and I've and it's kind of like there were good Germans who voted for Hitler. It does feel like that. It does feel that dark. I cannot see, in my rational sense, I cannot see how anyone could possibly vote for Trump, in particular in the time of virus. I find it kind of like crazy. At the same time, I also feel, now, I actually think that Brexit is a more, I've got some good friends, people I really like, who voted for Brexit. And part of it, and then also I've got a very good friend who voted for Brexit, who voted for Remain, but felt very sympathetic to the culture wars. And I felt upset about that. But Trump is different. I think Trump has gone, the other day, there was a Biden bus and it was besieged by, or crowded in by cars in Texas. And
yeah, no, and I actually, I mean, I live in Queens, which, as I told you before, is sort of purplish, if not more reddish tinged. And I was with Julia at the car wash on Sunday, so yesterday, and there was one of those Trump caravans that came blazing down Woodhaven Boulevard. And, you know, they're just waving. It was like an ethnic pride parade, waving flags, honking the horns, disrupting traffic a little bit. And then, but what they did on the Mario Cuomo bridge was shut down all traffic, which, if you're a New Yorker and even you're inclined to vote for Donald Trump, the last thing you need is New York traffic becoming more of a forbidding hellscape than it already is. Now I say that, but I will caveat that with, they also shut down the Garden State Parkway. Now, as a New Yorker, anything that hinders or even paralyzes New Jersey drivers from being on the road, I support. So to those Trump supporters, I say, solidarity, keep shutting down New Jersey road systems, but don't fuck with New York road systems. It's just that simple. But yes, no, it's becoming this, I mean, you know, look, I've seen such stupid and, you know, just farcically moral equivalent nonsense. I was some Twitter moron posted a photo of the Trump caravan and the ISIS caravan in Mosul or whatever. And a friend of mine was like, you know what? If you really want to compare the two, I suggest you try the Trump guys first and the ISIS ones last. And he said, we don't have to go there. We don't have to be stupid. We don't have to lose all sense of proportion and rationality in discussing this stuff. But there is something in the air. There is an insurgent quality, which is bizarre because Trump is the incumbent, and yet his base feels as though it's a rebellion of sorts, right? They don't see themselves as the establishment or the standard bearers. They see themselves as the perennial outsiders or the interlopers looking to break the establishment, to break the status quo yet again. And that, you know, for him, that's a trick. That's convincing them that, you know, he has not been president for 4 years. He is the outsider trying to drain the swamp or to kind of do a blitzkrieg. There I go with the moral equivalency on Washington, D.C. But that's part of that bag of tricks, as I mentioned, and it's appealing to a lot of people. It is.
Do you think there'll be violence?
I'm sure there's going to be violence tomorrow at polling stations, but probably also at following. I mean, if this is a contested election and there's no determined victor night of, which I don't think there will be, or there's a good chance, I should say, that there won't be. There's going to be protests, there's going to be counter protests, and in that kind of melee, you're going to see, of course, acts of violence. And in states where there's open carry laws, I mean, you've already seen Michigan militia types, or cosplay Hezbollah, as I like to call them, raid the Michigan State House. So what happens when these guys turn up? You know, they didn't get away with kidnapping the governor. So now they've got a big hard on for doing something massive. What happens when they show up and, you know, you get the University of Michigan educated, pink hat wearing brigade coming loggerheads with them? I mean, yes, of course, this is a cauldron of volatility. And again, where I am, this is a very kind of staid middle-class community, but this is not America. You know, it's difficult. Those of us in the news gathering and the news reporting business, you have to get outside your comfort zone. You have to get outside your bubble to understand what is happening elsewhere. And we seldom do. You and I go to foreign countries to do that. But the most foreign of foreign countries right now for me is my own, which is unusual. It's rare. It's why I drink. It's why I started doing this show with you.
Yes. After the Tommy Robinson thing, Britain became a kind of like going out to Sadr City in Baghdad, or for a bit in my head, not so much now, but it's scary, and I'm frightened. I feel, however, we've got 3 minutes left. Are we doing this tomorrow night as well?
Yeah. I'm actually, I am doing a Comedy Cellar 15-minute essential piss take on the election with a guy who's been on David Letterman and all that, somebody much funnier than I. But anyway, so I'm going to be up all night watching this. So apart from that 15-minute period,
yes,
which I think starts at like 10:30 for me, I'm free to, we can simulcast or whatever they call it.
I'm starting drinking. I'm starting drinking at 4 o'clock British time, which is probably a bad mistake, but there we go. But anyway, at some point we'll catch up. I feel essentially, I think there will be blood tomorrow. There will be some blood, and I feel that Trump will do his very best to mitigate and litigate. But essentially, I think that the polls are right, and therefore Trump's going to lose. It's going to be clear that he's lost, and the Republican establishment actually won't they will withdraw from the seat of battle, and then Trump's calculation and that of his family around him or his friend, whatever, the Trump core have got to look at it. It's better for him to back down and get out than it is for him to persist, because if he keeps on doing that, more blood will be lost, and then he starts becoming somebody who is looking more and more guilty of inciting violence, and that's a crime. So I think Biden wins big time. Trump fights it, but there's a certain point where the people around him will say, and people like Ivanka will say, "Stop this, Dad, because it's going to be worse for you."
If they can convince him, particularly his own children, that dad, you won this thing, you won it on the merits, you won the moral argument, you won the political argument, but enough is enough. Aren't you tired? Don't you want to kind of ride off into the sunset and make even more money and spend the last 10, 15 years of your life living as this sort of prophet of American renewal and populist whatever. If they can gaslight him to that degree, there's a chance. But I don't, look, I went into it in 2016 thinking this guy doesn't want to win. And even if he did win, he wouldn't be in the game for very long. He'd probably resign because he just wants to make a fortune, get his name. It's all about, remember, Trump Towers, Trump real estate, more often than not is just a licensing scheme. It's about having his name in gilt letters, whether it's in Baku or in Istanbul or in Moscow. It's not about actually creating anything. It's not about having ownership. So I thought mistakenly, stupidly, that his presidency was the same thing. He wants to brand the presidency a Trump phenomenon. But as soon as he's finished with that, he can sort of bugger off and declare bankruptcy, but claim that, of course, he was a ravishing success. I don't think he's going that way, though. I think, again, he can foresee his own political demise. He can see defeat. And he has at least articulated the prospect of what that would look like and then what the subsequent Trump period would look like. But he's not going to go quietly. It is going to be nasty. It probably will be bloody. He's got teams of lawyers lined up already to say that he's pulled a rabbit out of a hat yet again and he's won the thing. And he even said at a rally the other day, and if we don't know the night of who won, that's what the Supreme Court is for, which of course now he's appointed 3 justices to. Not to say that they would necessarily side with him if they're good at what they do and if they have a kind of constitutional or respect for the Constitution. But yeah, man, I look, if it's a blowout, it's a blowout. And then it becomes very difficult for him to say. But it's looking like it's not going to be a blowout. Like it might be a more near-run thing. And that means ambiguity. That means chaos. That means different silos of information and understanding. And that's what worries me. Because Americans they cannot agree anymore. 2 + 2 = 4. We're past that point. Yeah.
So on that note, on that cheery and happy note, I feel that we shall continue talking about this tomorrow and probably for the rest of our lives. I believe and hope in the good sense of the majority of Americans seeing through this ghastly con man. And I'm going to fucking drink to that. To a future for America.
If he wins again, John, when he runs for his 3rd term, I feel like I'm going to be in the ICU with you and you're going to be hooked up to all manner of fluids, including like Johnny Walker. And we're going to be doing the same show, having the same debate, the same manic depressive conversation. Monday, you're happy. I'm sad. Tuesday, vice versa.
We're happier. America is better than this. And fingers crossed that'll come through tomorrow. So it's good night from Samantha, Mary Lou.
Good night.
And from all of us, you've been listening to The Last Call.
By the way, before you sign off, I have to say, you've never reminded me more of Jack Nicholson in The Witches of Eastwick than you have. Like, what the fuck? I'm sitting here the entire time, like, what the fuck is this? Like, they're lovely. I'm sorry, but like, who are they and where did they? Like, how did you befriend them? Why are they there? Why did somebody come from Arkansas to visit you? Like, what kind of spell have you cast?
To be fair, they're both the chairman and deputy chairman of my local Conservative Party. Good night. You've been listening to The Last Call.